Hello, it's 2024. So why are we still talking about girls' education? We've made so much progress in the last 30 years, right? We've had the Right to Education Act in 2009. The literacy of rural women has gone up substantially from 34% to 65%. The median age of marriage has improved from 16 odd years to 19 years by 2021 data. Fertility rate for rural women has reduced from 3.7 to 2.1 in the data from 21, yes, yet again. And we've had a 33% reservation for women bill in parliament that was passed, albeit after a 27-year impasse. So with all of this progress, the issue is that we are still very, very, very far from gender equality. UNDP ranks India 122 out of 190 countries in gender inequality. And only 5% of CEOs and 10% of management positions are held by women in 2021. The sad reality is that today there are over 122 million girls globally who are denied an education, and India is home to a huge proportion of these girls, particularly adolescent girls. So the question is, why are we in this situation? So in order to go to school and stay in school and learn, millions of girls still have to overcome huge barriers. Poverty and marginalization takes away choice from families, forcing girls to work. Patriarchy, an all-pervasive mindset that values a girl less than a boy. A mindset where simply a goat is considered an asset and a girl a liability. So these are the root causes that we set out to tackle and educate girls, and the root causes that drive our work even today. I truly believe that girls' education and education itself is like a silver bullet. The World Bank says that girls' education can help improve 9 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, from poverty and health to climate goals. But more importantly, over and above all of this, the reason this is important and this issue is important is because it is her inherent right. And I say this with a lot of conviction, that we women are not equal until that last, most vulnerable girl has equality. And that equality will only be won through education. So the good news is that we do know how to solve for this problem. We have a model that works and works at scale. So today, I'm hoping that you will find some takeaways from our 16-year journey working on this particular issue. So the way we work is that because it is a mindset issue, we actually work on changing that mindset through village-based gender champions. We work very much a sort of a community ownership model, a community-based approach with village-based gender champions who actually help us identify out-of-school girls by going door to door, and then shifting norms, doing community mobilization, counseling parents, neighborhoods, village communities to bring those girls back into school and ensure their enrollment, retention, learning, and life skills. And so that's kind of like, very simply put, the model. And in 2007, we started with about 50 villages and then grew to 500. And then very quickly, we grew to 5,000 villages. In the last 16 years, we have covered 29,000 villages and supported the enrollment of 1.8 million girls and improved learning outcomes for over 2.2 million children. So what has really helped us scale so successfully? The first and foremost is really a clear vision of success. So if you close your eyes, you should be able to imagine the problem very clearly. And yours and mine, the vision should be the same, right? We see that girl who's in a village, she's not going to school, she's doing all the household work, she's grazing the goats, therefore she marries early, she's has children early, and is stuck in a cycle of intergenerational poverty and illiteracy. And so if we imagine success, we see that girl, in her school uniform, walking to school, in the classroom, learning, having lunch with her friends, having peer support, and completing her education. So having a very clear vision of success is really important, especially if you're going to be working with thousands of team members, but also tens of thousands of gender champions on the ground. We all need to see the problem as clearly as that, and we all need to see the same solution and the same destination point so we can all push together. The second is obviously very, very, very critical, and that is mission-aligned teams. Purpose is center stage. So how you bring your teams and your champions together, they must be aligned to your purpose. The third is obviously having a model that works and having evidence that that model works, but also codifying it and codifying it into a very modular, simple way that you can then scale it across thousands of villages. The other thing that I think we found, and this is slightly particular to gender, was 100% saturation approach. And this is interesting. So if I, because we're working on mindset change, if I talk to one person in Tokyo and one person in New Delhi and then one person in America, I'm not going to change any norms. People feed off norms as a group, whether it's neighborhoods or villages or areas. And so that I have to talk to everybody. So that 100% saturation approach is really important in actually bringing about a mindset shift. And as you can see, all of this is deep work. So you can't actually have a project-based approach. You need to have a problem-based approach. And solving that problem should be your main goal, which means that you need longer-term planning. So we work in, sort of 5-year plans, 5-year strategic plans. And this year, actually, we've even built a 10-year vision because that's how long it takes to bring change about. So really, these are sort of the key elements. And one of the other things that I want to mention is that, the 5-year strategy then also ensures that because you're not working in a project model, you're not parachuting in and out of a village. So we actually try and ensure that any village that we work in, we stay there for between 6 to 8 years. And that's because if you stay for 6 to 8 years, you're actually working with 10 cohorts in the classroom, right? That's a generation. And, so you actually just want to shift the equilibrium in that village. You can actually harvest generational change if you work like that. So those are some of the core components. And following that, we obviously today have 20,000 gender champions in very rural, remote, and tribal areas who are knocking on every door in their village, advocating for girls' education. But as we were scaling, and we were scaling really rapidly, I was very concerned about quality. Are we having the same quality in the additional villages where we are working? Or are we simply replicating scale? So we actually piloted the development impact bond very much to be able to test this idea of payment by results, of can you build into the DNA of your organization delivery to results versus just simply replicating your program. And the DIB was, went through a very rigorous third-party evaluation, and the external evaluation showed that the model had huge efficacy. After a 3-year period, 92% of all girls were in school and staying in school. And in terms of learning outcomes, our children actually achieved an additional year of schooling compared to the average child. So this was a really big step for us in terms of fueling results-based scale and quality. The second thing that I think the bond taught us was, data-driven decision-making. And the challenge that we were facing was, how do we accelerate the finding of out-of-school girls? Because it's a very boots on the ground, a very heavy approach, right? You have to knock, you have to go door to door, knock on all the doors, find every girl. And what happens is that when we looked at all of the data, we realized that out-of-school girls tend to be found in hotspots. They tend to cluster. They're not evenly distributed across all villages. So our other innovation that we did was we used a lot of our door-to-door survey data to build a predictive machine learning algorithm that can actually tell us in advance. It can predict the number of out-of-school girls we can expect to find by village. And what this threw up for us was very interesting statistics, which was that 5% of villages in India actually have 40% of out-of-school girls. So if you can identify these hotspots, what it means is that at my previous run rate, what would have taken us 45 years to cover, we can actually now do it in 5 years. And that's tremendous acceleration. And that is the acceleration we need, because the World Economic Forum Gender Gap Index report that was recently published actually states that at the current rate of progress, it will take 134 years to reach full parity, roughly 5 generations from now. I don't know about you, but I certainly don't think that we should be waiting that long for having equality for our women and girls. So the next big challenge that we're also working on is the adolescent girls, because that is a space where many, many, many more girls are out of school. They're not able to move successfully from schools to linkages like, employment or skilling. And so our goal over the next 10 years is to really focus on making sure that we can impact 10 million learners over the 10 years. Now, a couple of other things that I wanted to mention, that when you work in terms of girls' education, that are tools in your arsenal, as it were. One is incentives. I think things like fee waivers for girls, scholarships for girls. This will really help to accelerate representation of girls and their participation in education. The second are forcing mechanisms. For example, as I had mentioned earlier, the landmark legislation to reserve 33% of seats for women in parliament. That's a forcing mechanism, right? Or mandated separate toilet for girls in school is a forcing mechanism. So incentives on one hand, and then forcing mechanisms on the other hand, are again tools and policy-making tools that we can advocate for girls to accelerate in terms of equality. And coupled with mindset shift, I think for the girls themselves, the piece that I find again and again and again, that what we need to do for the girls themselves is build aspiration. Because patriarchy really hollows out any level of aspiration from girls. So they do not have that sense of self-worth because it has actively been eroded in some shape or form. So build aspiration for the girls. Second, build confidence, because and they kind of go hand in hand, right? If you don't have aspiration, you don't have the confidence either. So build the aspiration, build the confidence. And then the third is build support, because there are so many gatekeepers for that girl, that building support is really what is key. Building support in the community, building support in the systems, building support in the neighborhood, everywhere, in the family, is what is really needed. So, and we need to do this because honestly, women and girls hold up half the sky, and we need to make sure that they too can reach their dreams and they too can access opportunities which are open to others. I am Safina Hussain, and I educate girls.